Today, I'm super excited to finally be taking an in-depth look at the new camera cage system that I designed for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera, the original HD version. Now, if you've been following the channel, you know I've been working on this for quite some time. There have been a lot of updates coming and going. We kicked off pre-sales a while back. I'm happy to say that everything is now fully in stock, ready to ship. If you go and order this today, it'll be out tomorrow. So I wanted to make a little video overview of all the parts designed for this system and how they sort of all work together. Sort of a little bit of both an introductory to the system itself, as well as for the people that have bought this system and are curious about how certain accessories attach to them. This will be an overview of how all that stuff sort of works. Now, there's a lot of different parts to this system, a total of about 13 different accessories, including the cage. So I'm breaking this down into chapters. You can jump ahead to the parts that specifically apply to you. But first, if you're new to the channel, if you're just joining us, be sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And with that, let's get going. Now, diving straight into it with the cage itself, this is a very unique design in the sense that it is all-encompassing around the camera. It doesn't leave a whole lot of the camera exposed. Now, this is made out of 6061 grade aluminum, CNC machined with an anodized black coating on the outside. Now, the cage itself weighs just under 11 ounces. Now, there's a total of 65 1/4-20 mounting points all around the camera. There's plenty of real estate for you to put any accessory you need. There are two 3/8 by 16 holes on both the top and bottom. That being mainly that a lot of more professional tripod plates have 2 points of mount for the camera so that it avoids any sort of swivel. And oftentimes on those tripods, one will be a 3/8 and one will be a 1/4 inch. Now, if you do have sort of a more lower level tripod that has 2 1/4 inch screws, the camera does come with a little adapter screw that goes into the point on the 3/8 to make it 2 1/4-20, so you can still mount this to any tripod you want, or gimbal, or whatever you might be mounting this onto. On the top 3/8 inch, you'll see there are two little holes on the side that are not threaded, and these are alignment holes for that RE style spacing of accessories. You'll see these in top handles, you'll see these in sort of monitor mounts and different arms that you can attach on. You'll see another hole on the bottom. This is for the alignment of the 15mm rail mounts. More on that when I get to those in a second. Now, you'll see an engraving here along the bottom, XLCS, that's the name of the company that I started to bring these cages to market. And that's sort of a derivative of excelsis, which is Latin, of course, for to the highest degree, which is what I really wanted to do with the quality of these cages and all the systems involved. Another design element I added to this cage is sort of this thumb nub on the back. It helps give you a lot of stability when shooting single-handed with this. So that's right here, right in place where you need it. It's got a little bit of a knurling on the back to kind of give you a little bit of added grip to that. And with the front, these little prongs here is another place for you to sort of rest your fingers and kind of create a nice sort of stable, steady grip on the cage while it is in use. Now, beyond that, you'll see these sort of two elongated slots on the top and the bottom. These are accessory locks. I've got currently a hood and two different back covers for this. Along the side, you'll see more mounting points. Right here is sort of a smaller M4 size hole. This is for the HDMI port protector. We'll talk about that in a moment. Up front, you've got two more M4 holes, and this is for the METABONES adapter lock to keep that into place. Another set of holes here on the side, holes in the front. Now, once the camera is secure inside through mounting points on the top and the bottom, you put the camera inside the cage, bolt it right in, and you'll see that they sit completely flush with the top of the cage. Obviously, you still have full access to your menu buttons, recording buttons, everything you need, as well as the battery port on the bottom for the SD card and whatnot. Everything is still accessible, easy to get to the actuation point for removing your lenses. It's also, the camera itself, slightly recessed below the lip of the back, so at no point does anything actually make contact with the ground. This has been designed to work with a myriad of different top handles. You can add the sort of RE style top handle, the sort of more fixed old small rig style. You can add a NATO rail on here and use this top handle that slides onto the NATO mount. So pretty much whatever you've got will probably already work for this. Now, let's move on to some of the accessories. Like I said, I've got quite a few of them. The HDMI port is the Achilles heel of this camera. I've owned 5 in the past that have broken because I didn't have appropriate cable locks in place. Now, this was also machined out of 6061 aluminum, completely metal. To mount the HDMI port protector, first you want to start with the protector itself. Line it up with the M4 hole. You want the sort of smaller arm protruding down with the larger bulk coming towards up. And then you're going to take your HDMI pigtail. Again, this is also included with the HDMI port protector. and slide it in through the top, align it, and it'll pop right into place. And you can loosely finger tighten this in, take it down. You kind of want it to be a little bit loose at this point. The next thing we want to do, you want to take in this side screw and tighten it down pretty good. And so that's locked into place, and then you want to take your other wrench and just simply finish tightening down and lock it in secure. And with that, it's on about as secure as you could ever hope. I mean, I have zero worry whatsoever about anything happening to this. There's also a little bit slight lip up. It doesn't sit completely flush with this side, and that is so that you can continue to add other accessories to this, like the different back covers. Now to remove it, a couple options. You can either fully take everything off, or you could potentially just leave the lock itself into place and remove the side screw enough to pull out the cable lock, and it should just sort of keep its alignment from here on out. And you can always just re-screw it back in. Of just about all the accessories that I put together for this cage, I would say this is probably the most useful and the most important for actually keeping your camera safe if you plan on ever using an external monitor. Now moving on to the next accessory, the 12-volt cable lock. So the system I developed for this works very similar to the HDMI port protector. You want to take your cable, which is provided with the port protector, set it into place so that it's pointing down. Then you want to take the actual port protector, set it on top, and line it up with that bottom. Now I just want to point out, this points towards the front. So it goes to the front, not to the back. If it goes on the back, then it's going to be sitting too low. So you put this on the front, and this does use a 1/4-20. Take it on down. Again, you don't want to fully tighten this down yet. You want to take your next screw, finger tighten it in, and then once you're there, you can tighten this on down. And what this is going to do is it's going to press the head of the power cable up and against the back of the port lock, kind of keeping it lined up and in place. And once that's there, you can then sort of apply a little bit of pressure here and finish locking down the actual lock, putting that into place. Now again, this isn't going anywhere. This is not coming out. Now obviously these wouldn't be worth anything if they couldn't be used simultaneously. And when you're on set, you have access to your monitor, you have access to your power, and both of them are just about as solid and secure as you could ever hope for. Now, as with the HDMI port, the 12-volt cable lock is also slightly elevated off of the back, creating about 1 millimeter of space. And this is so that you can, again, put your back covers on, your transparent cover, your hood, so that everything can be in place and used simultaneously. All right, next thing we're going to talk about really quick, just because it's obviously been in the shot this whole time, is the locking body cap that I developed for this. The native body cap that come with these cameras has no means of keeping it in place. It can potentially just sort of rotate and fall off in your bag, leaving the sensor fully exposed. So I wanted something that you could put into place and know that it's not coming off, to kind of keep that sensor fully protected. Now this is also fully made out of metal. Anodized red, lines up the hole here with the red dot and just clips right into place. It's a very satisfying sound, I love it. Now once this is on, it's fully locked into place. It will not come off unless you depress the lens release here, and that will allow you to take the cap off. The next thing I want to talk about is something I'm excited about, is a wooden handle that was developed to kind of extend that grip. Now this is made out of black walnut, which is very high quality hard wood. These are also CNC machined off of a wood CNC machine. They are then hand sanded, buffed and waxed to provide a very natural finish. It's very smooth to the touch, but it's not shiny, just screws into place, and voila. Now, like I said, naked, this cage is very comfortable to shoot with. With this in place, this makes it very, very nice to shoot and hold for long periods of time over the duration of your day. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the back accessories that were built. We're gonna start with the LCD hood. All these plastic accessories are injection molded. This is made out of ABS plus PC, which is polycarbonate, which means it's got the strength and durability of ABS, but it's also got a little bit of flexibility to it, so you don't have to worry about, you know, the snapping as you're putting it through the paces of use. All these accessories fit and sort of clip into place thanks to these longer holes on the top and the bottom. So this clips right into place. You kind of have to press it in a little bit, but there you go, right into place, and it stays on strong enough that really you could just go off of that. However, I did want to give you a little bit of added security in your day while using this. And so I made it with some added holes on the top and bottom that line up with the 1/4 holes of the cage. They come with these little button screws so that you can actually screw this into place, locking it on. And then to remove this, I mean, essentially it's very sturdy. You can just sort of grab it and pop it off. Comes off nice and simple. It's also got, you know, the finger tabs, so if you're having a little bit of trouble, you can pry it up a little bit. So just sort of stick your thumb underneath there and it pops off. Now, before I move on to the back covers, I want to quickly talk a little bit about the 15mm rail mount. We'll cover this more in depth in a second. It pertains to this a little bit. As you can see, you know, the button protrudes a little bit, and you've also got that finger tab here that's used for removing it. I wanted to be sure that people could use this or the back cover when rigged out and using 15mm rails. You can see I actually made the top surface of this with cutouts that you can actually set this on and lock in your 15mm rail mount, and it sits completely flush with both the screw and the hood in place. Now, moving on to some of the other plastic accessories I've designed for this. First one being the solid back cover. I designed this specifically for transport, for travel. The back screen on this is irreplaceable, and even though this cage does have a recessed edge to keep it from impact, if you have this in a bag, you've got loose parts in there, a screwdriver, it still leaves this screen completely exposed to get bashed by something. So I designed this, just like the hood, it's meant to clip right into place. It stays on fairly well. However, if you, again, want to be sure that it stays in place during transport, you can also take your button screws that are included and lock it into place. With this back cover in place, whether it's locked or just sitting on there with your cap locked into place, there's no part of this that's exposed to damage. I mean, you could throw this in your backpack, whether it's got a special casing point for it or if it's just free to roam around within your bag. There's nothing that can make contact with this now that could pop the cap off, that could break the screen. The entire camera is completely encased now and fully protected. This might not seem like a lot to a lot of people, just a plastic back, but I think it does a great deal to secure and keep your camera safe for the long term, especially if you travel a lot with your camera. Now again, just like with the hood, it's got these little finger tabs here. You can easily just sort of pop this off and set it aside, and it's there for when you need it again, and snaps right into place. I love it. When I did the Google form and asked viewers what else they'd like to see, a lot of people were asking for a transparent version of the back cover so that they could protect the screen while being used. Just like the back cover, it fits on and clips into place and provides you with a window to see that screen with a cutout so that you can still access all the menu options as well. As with the hood, you know, if you're using this on a shoot and you want the clear back cover in place for protection, but you're still planning to use a rail system with this for your battery, your map box, your follow focus, again, it's been made so that this can sit right into place with the cage, with the cover screwed into place without any gaps. Now, a lot of what we've been talking about with this camera involves taking it on the go, shooting it with the handheld. So another accessory that was developed are camera strap loops. Now, I did not machine strap loops into the cage. There's always that question of placement. Where is it best served for people that do rely on camera straps? So I wanted to make them a little bit more modular so you can actually place these wherever you want them. Basically, they come with the hardware as with everything else, and you can simply screw them onto your cage, adjust them to whatever angle you find most fitting, and lock it down. You know, you can put your strap loops on both sides for a neck strap if you want to carry it around that way or add some stability while shooting. You could put both on one side to sort of add a wrist strap. I know those are on the market as well. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there are a lot of mounting points on here, but only a few that are close enough to an edge that would give you full access to thread something through here. You know, if you were to just straight screw this on to, you know, say the middle of this back portion, it's going to sit flat with the cage. You can't thread anything underneath. So these are coming with washers that you can use. The washer will add a slight amount of separation, so if you have this mounted onto a portion of the cage that doesn't have immediate access to the bottom of the strap loop, this will give you about almost 2 millimeters of height that will allow you to thread your strap in pretty much any location on the cage. All right, next we're going to talk about this. This is a METABONES speed booster adapter lock. The thing about speed boosters, and this has happened to me before, is that it provides a secondary connecting point. You might forget to click that all the way in, and I swear this happened to me once. I was turning focus on my lens. I didn't have that fully clicked into place, and the speed booster disconnected from the camera and the lens fell to the ground. What this does is that it locks the speed booster itself to the cage, which means that it can no longer just turn on its own even when the lens release button is depressed, which eliminates one of those connecting points so that now you only have to worry about the one of the lens going to the speed booster. So to install these, as you can see, the speed boosters have this sort of leg on the bottom. Now these are removable, so take whatever tool came with your speed booster to remove this foot. You'll be left with just sort of the clean circle one. Then you want to take your adapter lock, and with the flat surface pointing towards the back of the speed booster, the side that mounts to the camera, you want to then take your included hardware, take this down. Again, don't tighten it, leave it a little bit loose so that you have some ability to rock this back and forth, as you can see here. With your camera already in the cage, attach the speed booster and twist it into place till you hear it click and lock. The holes now line up with those two holes that are on the face of the cage. And as you can see, this is still loose here. You want to slide it flat against the body of the camera, body of the cage. Tighten up the bottom ones onto the speed booster. Now from here, you take the two longer screws and you again gently take those into place and then lock the front ones into place. And now the speed booster is completely locked to the cage of the camera. Even if you depress this, there's no way you can twist this off and again risk anything falling out of place. On the bottom, it still allows the cage to sit completely flat on the ground. There's no obstruction. One thing to keep in mind is when this is in place, you can't obviously remove the camera from the cage. You have to remove the speed booster. All you have to do is just remove the ones off the front of the cage, depress, and it'll swing out of place. And then you can either swap your lens out or remove the camera from the cage and just sort of leave this adapter lock on your speed booster from now on. Let's say later on down the road you want to put it back on. It should just slide right into place. Perfect alignment with the holes on the body. Take your screws, run them on down, and you're good to go. Now, the METABONES adapter lock is specific for the METABONES or Viltrox speed boosters. Like I said, there's enough front way on this that you could potentially use it with other adapters. I haven't tested all the adapters on the market. However, let's say you wanted to use a PL mount or another larger adapter that you wanted to avoid that same issue, that worry of the adapter disconnecting from the camera. Well, I've come up with a secondary adapter lock. This is more of a universal one. Now this will only work when used in pair with the 15mm rail mount. If you're using something like a PL mount lens or a larger lens that's going to require that beefy of an adapter, chances are you're going to be using a rail system anyway. As you can see on the 15mm rail mount, there's two M4 holes in the front that this goes into place. We're going to use this METABONES adapter as sort of a sample because again, it's going to be common for a lot of these adapters to sort of have these legs. Now they could be further forward, they could be longer, and so that's why this has a lot of different length for it to drop down or protrude forward from the facade of the 15mm rail mount. So here we have our camera cage mounted onto the 15mm rail mount adapter. We're going to take our universal adapter and line it up with the holes on the 15mm rail mount. Now again, as with most of this, you don't want to tighten it quite yet. You want to leave a little bit of wiggle room in there to make adjustments as you're putting things together. Put the adapter on, swivel it into place. You want to align the screw. You want to tighten that on down into place. Then we're going to want to tighten the front ones again, and that locks its height position. So now with that in place, it does essentially the exact same thing as the METABONES specific one, essentially making it impossible for this adapter to disconnect or be removed while this is in place, so that you only have to worry about the lens being attached. All right, lastly, let's talk about the 15mm rail mount. The problem with a lot of the 15mm rail mounts that are a little bit more universal and on the market is that because the Blackmagic Pocket has such a low profile, it brings the rails too close to the body of the camera, and you need some space here. Larger cinema lenses than this one, they might interfere with the rails themselves. Your follow focus units won't be able to fit properly and adjust properly. The gear itself, if it's too high, if you do get this to fit, is then sitting too high on the lens, and everything just sort of gets a little bit wonky. And so this 15mm rail adapter was specifically designed with some height to it to kind of get you some more elevation above the rail so that more of these accessories fit better with your camera when using it in this capacity. And they fit right about where they're supposed to. Now the second part to this is also getting your map box to fit. And again, if those rails are too close, then you're going to have interference with the rails and your map box. Now, it really depends on what type of map box you're using. What's really popular right now are the clamp-on map boxes, which I actually think are probably the way to go. As you can see here, it's made to mate with your cinema lenses, sits right into place, and again, you've still got enough clearance here for your rails to clear your map box. Rail-mounted map boxes are also going to sit too high if you don't have a 15mm rail mount that is elevated enough to bring the lens up to meet the hole on your map box. Now, something else you'll see is that the holes on the bottom are slightly elongated. I wanted to add a little bit of universality to this. So this will mount on your old small rig cage. It'll mount on your old wooden camera cage. However, something I did build into this design so that you could find perfect center and sort of help it mate a little bit more organically with the cage is you'll see on the front there's a very tiny hole. Now this hole is threaded, and the screw required for that is included with this in the hardware, but essentially, you know, you can just take this and screw it into place onto your rail mount. And now you can see there's a little bit of a nub there. Again, looking back on the bottom of the cage, you'll notice that little hole that was put in place there. Now what that is that this goes right into that hole, and then through the bottom, the holes line up right where they should be. And essentially what this does is it helps you find perfect center when mounting these rails onto this cage to give it sort of a more cage-specific fitment for getting your rails perfectly centered when mounting this all together. Like I said, it's got indentation cutouts so that this can be used with the multitude of plastic backings that are put into place for this. As you can see, everything sits totally flush and clean. And that's it. Thanks so much. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you find this whole cage system helpful to help you get the most out of your Blackmagic, to help protect your Blackmagic. Like I said, I felt it was really important to try and get some of this stuff back out on the market. I am developing other cages. There's one for the micro cinema camera that is just about done. That should be going into production soon. Now that I've worked out some of the kinks in this whole thing, I hope to get that to market faster than this. I know it was behind by a couple months more than I promised it, but it's here. I think you're going to love the quality. I think you're going to be very happy with everything you get out of this. Everything's in stock, ready to ship. If you have any issues with your cage, please feel free to contact me at contact.xlcsdesigns@gmail.com. And with that, again, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.